Of the 78,000 rapes committed in England and Wales last year, 9,000 of the victims were men. It's an astonishing number, and sadly the subject of male sexual violence remains for many a taboo.
The effects of the crime are devastating. One man whose life changed forever following an attack is Chris Tomlinson. The repercussions of the rape he was subjected to nearly led him to take his own life.
After bravely waiving his right to anonymity, Chris is joined by Clinical Director of the Sexual Assault Referral Centre, Dr. Catherine White, who believes that by speaking today, Chris will have a hugely positive effect, and that's what we were talking about just as you sat down a moment ago, is that you will make a difference today. But why have you waived your right to anonymity?
I think it's because what I went through and how it affected the people closest to me. The attack to me happened 10 years ago, and I think if there's someone like me pushing to sort of, but not normalise it, but
yes,
explain that it does happen to men, I think I'd have maybe come forward then.
Well, you also had, at the time, didn't think you'd be believed. You thought people would think, well, this can't happen to a man. You had all of that going on in your head. So had you, over that last 10 years, tuned into the telly and seen someone like yourself talking, maybe you would have come forward earlier.
Definitely.
So it's incredibly powerful.
Well, the rapist, his name is Nicholas Holbrook. And when did you first meet this guy?
I was 18. I was sent on a forklift training course. He owned the company. He befriended me. Realised very quickly that I lived alone. I was not in close contact with my parents, and he sort of progressed on that and became almost a father figure.
You had no reason to sort of fear this man. I mean, he was a family man. He was married. He had children.
You were straight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, so there was no suggestion that that you might have been thinking of any sort of relationship with him.
No.
So this came absolutely out of nowhere because you trusted him as a father figure.
Yeah.
And so, when did it begin to progress for you into territory where you thought, this is a bit uncomfortable?
Looking back, there's lots of warning signs, but I discounted them because it didn't make sense to me. He was a family man. I just thought it was...
And you were, as you say yourself, 18, a bit naive.
Yeah.
And he was 28 years older than you.
Yeah.
You were looking for a flat at the time, and he got very involved in your flat hunting, didn't he? He was sort of suggesting flats that were more sort of off the main road, down little alleys and things like this. And looking back in hindsight, you think you now know the reason for that?
It's very easy to see in hindsight the way he planned things and...
That he wanted to make sure he could have access to your flat without anyone seeing him coming or going.
And so it got to the stage where it was obviously inappropriate and you had to say something. Did you tell him that I'm not interested?
Yeah, but again, he was very clever. He'd explained things to sort of question my rationality about it all. It made me think it was all in my head.
And that's what they do, don't they? They control and manipulate you to make you believe that.
So you'd make excuses not to see him?
Yeah, for a long time, and then I'd sort of bring it back and think, oh yeah, maybe he is what he says he is.
Are you all right to talk about this the day that it actually happened?
Yeah.
I don't know how comfortable you are
Yeah.
to say it, because he did come to the flat, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
He followed me upstairs. And I was raped.
And that's where it happened. God.
When it happened, those, and I only ask these questions because I think there'll be people we're going to discuss fighting back and all of those sort of things. Because a lot of the misconceptions about this whole thing is that, as you're going to say, is homosexual. It's not. It's straight men. It is often a situation where people would imagine the guy to fight back. You just punch him off. But how come that didn't happen, or you couldn't do that?
Fear. You're like a rabbit caught in headlights. That's how I remember it.
Terrified.
Yeah, of course.
No, I don't. It's hard to explain really how. I mean, I was a lot smaller than I am now, but even so, I could have probably physically overcome him, but
The
you were
fear.
terrified.
Yeah.
I can totally understand that. You thought after that you went to the police. Did you go to the police at this point? Did you speak to them?
I went to the police with the intention of reporting it, but once the police officer come, I backed down and just said, he's arresting me, and he had a word.
And you hoped that would be enough,
yeah.
because he actually spoke to Nicholas Holbrook and
Yeah.
had a word with him, and you thought hopefully that would be the end of you ever having to see him again, but it wasn't. He did turn up at your place of work, didn't he?
He did, yeah. But that was the last time I did actually see him.
After
it was
that.
terrifying, but there's nothing else, and I thought I could walk away from it then and forget and move on with my life.
Well, it's quite obvious that it had a massive impact on your life, because you know, this was way back, sort of spring 2003. The attack took place. At the end of 2009, you're living with this, and in fact, you nearly died with it. You very nearly took your own life.
Yeah.
So was this a gradual escalation of it in your head? Things just snowballed?
It disappeared out of my mind for years. It was always there, but it didn't really cause any problems. But it came back and hit me like a sledgehammer, like I said, 4 years ago.
You talked to a few of your mates about it, but as you said, they didn't really know quite what to say.
No.
It was an uncomfortable conversation, and it was when you spoke to your girlfriend in July of 2011,
Yeah.
having lived with it for all this time, that finally the truth came out.
Yeah.
And what did she say to you?
She was shocked, very supportive, but shocked. And she explained that I really did need to go to the police and finally get it seen to.
And with her support, that's exactly what you did, and you were really encouraged by the reaction you got from the police when you went there.
Yeah, definitely. They're very supportive.
There were specialist officers, weren't they?
Yes.
Who dealt with you.
Yeah.
So people who knew and were
Experienced.
sympathetic and experienced.
And dealt
yeah.
with other victims.
Well, it was a lengthy investigation, but in April of this year, the case went to court and Holbrook was found unanimously guilty. The judge described him as a predatory homosexual determined to have whatever he could in a sexual way from vulnerable young men. You were offered a screen in court, but you didn't want to be
No.
behind a screen, so you wanted to see him.
I decided pretty much from the beginning that I did want to face him.
And you said there was an arrogance about him.
Oh, very much so, yeah. Even up to the day before he got found guilty.
Mm. And I mean, today you've waived your right to anonymity to come here and talk about it, and that's what you want to do, isn't it? You now want to help others to talk about this, have an open conversation, not be embarrassed, not be shy, say it.
That's it, and that's why I'm pursuing this now and trying to get people to realise that it does happen. And if they can see me doing this, it might encourage others to come forward and not go through 10 years of torment.
Absolutely.
Well, Catherine, let's look at some of the things that we talked about there. So this is a hidden problem.
Yes, I mean, I think it's fantastic that Chris has come forward, and I think it really will help a lot of people. We know for all sexual violence that the vast majority of people don't ever say anything. And I think for men, it's particularly the case. So it does happen, but there's lots of myths and stereotypes. You mentioned them before, that people think it's just homosexual men. Well, it happens to heterosexual men and homosexual men, that the perpetrators are often heterosexual. So a lot of people are suffering in silence, and hopefully, you know, with Chris's example, more people might come forward.
So what should you do? When you say come forward, where do you go? What do you do?
Well, people have got options, but they don't know about the options. And one of the issues is there's so much guilt and shame and confusion, because when we sit here now thinking, what would I do if somebody attacked me? We're using sort of higher functions of our brain. When you're actually attacked, as you said, it's the rabbit in the headlights. It's a more primitive part of your brain. So most people don't fight, they don't run away, they acquiesce really and let these things happen. But they're not to blame, it's the rapist who's to blame. So what can people do? Well, there might be health issues that need addressing. Some people might not be sure whether they want to inform the police, but you can get help either way. So there's the sexual assault referral centres, there's organisations such as Survivors UK, you could go see your family doctor, and just ask for the different, so the psychological, medical and the forensic aspects. Most sexual assault referral centres will see people as a self-referral, so if you're not sure whether you want to involve the police, you can still go for help and get you know, the forensic samples taken. Injuries, if there are any, and very often there aren't, those can be documented, and things like HIV risk, hepatitis B, all those other issues can be addressed and dealt with, and it buys a little bit of time for the person to see what do they want to do.
And also, you said you mentioned it to your friends. People are maybe uncomfortable having this sort of discussion. Guys aren't very good at talking to each other. It's amazing that you mentioned it to them, and well done for doing that. But also picking up on the signs. If you think someone there's something wrong here, we're not very good at picking up on those signs, because it may not be something that necessarily would spring to mind.
No, that's right. And you know, people suffer in silence. Some people can box this off, but it tends to come out in other ways. So whether it's depression, there's all sorts of body symptoms that you can have, and those around you might not know what's going on. So if people can, it is good to talk about these things. It doesn't necessarily make all the problems go away, but it starts you on the path where, instead of suffering with, you know, misery and silence, you can start getting help.
Holbrook had offended before, and so, you know, thankfully you're coming forward, getting him put away. Who knows how it would have developed? Perhaps you've prevented him doing to someone else what he did to you. There's no way of knowing. But what we do know is that you have managed to pull your life together and are in a much, much happier place now. Great partner. You have a lovely fiancé, and who's behind you and completely agrees with you coming and talking to us today.
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely to have you here. And
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.